Welcome to Marketing Rebels Breaking Business Barriers. You've joined us for a special series called Marketing Momentum for Mental Health, and we have Tracy here, and she's going to tell us a little bit about herself, why this topic matters to her, and why it should matter to you. Welcome, Tracy, again to the show.
Thanks, Shauna. I'm always excited to be here.
And I'm telling you right now, everybody else is excited because when they see your face, they know that they're in for some giggles and some real, authentic, grappling conversations.
We go fun and we go deep at the same time.
Exactly, which is kind of a great example of life too. So tell everybody a little bit about yourself if they've just joined us today, and then they can find you because you're in a couple other episodes too.
Yes, you can find me. I'm around the Marketing Rebels podcast. About me. So honestly, my authenticity journey started maybe about 10, 11 years ago now, in this like kind of funky moment where I was just like dusting some shelves, not really contemplating the meaning of life or anything. But what came up for me was that I think I'm being my authentic self like 5% of the time. And almost immediately I was like, what is up with that? Right? Like, I'm pretty good. I'm pretty smart. I'm like pretty nice. I'm helpful. I'm loyal. I'm good at sports. Like, I'm going through all these things in my head where I'm like trying to convince myself that I should be my authentic self. But there were so many external factors that had created this environment. There were work things, there were personal things that had created this environment of me not being my real, genuine, authentic, pick the word you like, self. And so I went on a journey to explore that. Who was contributing to that? What was contributing to that? What spaces were contributing to that? And to continually move towards more authenticity, whether that is in marketing, which is what I help people with from a job perspective, but from parenting, from relationships, from really just the human perspective of what it looks like to be yourself. So that's kind of what you need to know about Tracy for the conversation today.
For the conversation today, because let me tell you, there's a lot more that you could know that would make your life a lot more magical. But I think that's actually a really amazing starting point, because in particular, authenticity, we're going to talk about that throughout. I just want everybody to know. And you're right, whatever word you choose to use, authenticity is the one that we typically use. But the kicker here is, what are these external factors that made you realize, right, that I'm actually, and here we're twisting this around here, I'm not being authentic 95% of the time.
Mm-hmm.
How did that happen? Like, and I mean, for you in particular, but then also, like, let's look at this in reality and really dive into how we're conditioned throughout our day-to-day to not really tap into our authentic self.
Yes. And and this is the thing, it's not generally one big thing that makes you decide that. It's a whole bunch of little things that add up time over time. And when you think about it from the concept of the straw that broke the camel's back scenario, that these are pieces of straw. And so each individual one, we don't actually notice that much. We just then they continue to stack up and they continue to stack up. And then it starts to feel heavy. And we have this like heaviness we're carrying around, but we don't really know what it is. And we think like, oh, this is straw, right? Straw is light. It's fine. Like I can carry this. And in fact, then we have a societal narrative that teaches us the more you can carry, the more good you are as a person, right? Like the better you are as a human. And you're like, oh, okay, well, that's not super helpful. And it's societal things, it's familial things, like coming from your family, it's your school environment, it's your work environments, it's your cultural environment, it's like everything in the human experience as of today. Most places have expectations of what it looks like to be there, right? My son is in kindergarten right now. There's already expectations of what it looks like to be in kindergarten. I'm going to share this really ridiculous example with you because we'll all say it's ridiculous, but then if we try to draw similarities, you'll see a lot in your life.
Love it.
So I send my son to school with a snack and a sandwich. Sandwich for lunch and a snack for snack. My son doesn't like to eat his sandwich at lunch. He likes to eat his sandwich at snack because he's hungry at snack and his sandwich is bigger, so he eats a sandwich. I do not care when he eats a sandwich. I care that he eats food. Eat your food. I don't care when you eat it. But the kids at school were telling him he can't eat his sandwich at snack. You eat your sandwich at lunch. This is so nuts because like it seems like a little thing, right? And will it really ruin someone's life if you eat your sandwich at lunch instead of snack? Probably not. But that's why it seems like a piece of straw, right? And we get used to this. And one of the things I was so proud of him about is he came home and he asked me, Mom, can I eat my sandwich at snack? And I was like, yeah. And he was like, look, I can't. And so my question was like, well, what did the teacher say? Because if the teacher's saying you can't eat your sandwich, then we might have a bigger conversation.
Yeah.
But no, it's just the kids. Okay, the teacher didn't say anything. Okay, fine, good. If the other kids want to eat their sandwich at lunch, that's fine. And if you want to eat your sandwich as snack, that's also fine. And then I asked him, when do you want to eat your sandwich? I want to eat it at snack. Great. Go to, and he has no problem with his sense. This was like that permission. But these are the little things that add up, and we see them at school, and we see them in our home lives. And if I just don't say this, then someone won't get mad, so I just won't say that, right? And that's a layer of, I call it the hard candy coating on top of our personal brand that stops us from being our authentic self. And by the time we get to, like, I started breaking this down when I was about 33, maybe. It was like 33 years of layers of hard candy coating.
Absolutely.
Also can't expect just to like break free. And so I'm trying to help my son create less hard candy coating so he has more permission to be himself from the get-go. But like even now, I'll go to my mother-in-law's, and a like lovely human. I love her so much. She raised 3 boys, and there's so much narrative about how that's just a boy thing.
Right.
Yep.
I agree.
Just
I agree
let go.
I've got 2 girls. I've got a boy as well. I've got 2 girls, and I would just have to stop. It would make me freeze when somebody would say that, because my eldest would play the exact same as every one of her male friends, the exact same. And in fact, she still does oftentimes. Now she's reading into some of these narratives, which is really interesting. But when she was younger, definitely. And I would be like, no, my daughter literally did that last week. No, my daughter, like, and I would be like, I was really trying to break that narrative as well, for just across the board to my boy mom friends is what it is. And it's just like, no, trust me, your boy can also be gentle and sweet and loving. It all depends on the narratives we're allowing them to retain that's going on around us. Because like my son, I let him wear dresses until he was 3 because he wanted to. He was like, he has 2 big sisters. It makes sense. He was exposed to it. He's like, this is fun. It's airy, man. Like, this is great. And even to this day, he'll be the first one. He is not too cool to say, hey, that nail polish is amazing. Can I have some? Or, and this is something I think that is people don't realize. It's very subtle, because I actually want to talk about overt and covert messaging as well, because I think that's really important. He will say to his sisters and to me, PS, which is like, melt your heart. They come out of the room. It doesn't matter what they're wearing. Honest to God, it doesn't matter what they're wearing. Oh my goodness, you look beautiful. I'm just like, what? This is amazing. This is amazing, because truly, and I just want to he's 5 at the time of this recording. He's 5. And I'm hoping it sticks, because I've seen a lot of boys listen to the narrative that that's effeminate talk, right? That a boy it doesn't notice beauty. Right. And I feel like that's a very broad statement, but it's true. That is at its root.
They notice beauty in women, and that's how we judge each other. We'll just leave that for a different day.
Yes. Yes. And it's a different way of noticing beauty and attractiveness. That there's a difference there, right? And being able to express when you see something beautiful. My neighbor too, he told us the other day the other day. I say, probably about a year and a half ago, actually. But he says, I don't know why I ever didn't buy flowers for my home. Because he came home with flowers, because we had bought flowers all over our house. And he had said, I really love the flowers you've got on the fence and morning glories, things like that. And so he went out and bought them. He said, I don't know why I never bought them. I said, I think I do. and he looked at me. He's an older gentleman, and he knew, right? He just like, yeah, and he rubs his neck. Yeah, I guess so. And I said, I love that you love flowers. I love that about you. I didn't know that about you, and I love that about you. And you could see some things shifting, right? And it's interesting how we can make that impact on other people. Imagine what we can do for ourselves when we start thinking critically about how we are, both overtly and covertly, receiving this information.
Yeah. And not critically in the way you're like criticizing yourself,
Right.
but we're like critical thinking
Correct.
about like,
Yeah.
what's up with this? Like, why do I actually believe that? Where did that come from?
That's right. That's right. Do I actually believe that? I have to say, Tracy, one of the things that stuck with me, and to this day, I use this even with my clients, with my family, with everybody, is when you told me, and goodness, it must be years ago now, what would I do? What would I do? That made a huge difference in how I perceive the world and in how I teach others to perceive their worlds from an authentic viewpoint. Can you dive into that a little bit? Because I think that could be very helpful for anybody who's putting themselves out there as an entrepreneur, or just as a person, as a human being. And you're trying to navigate this space of like, I want to be myself, but there's so many layers that I start feeling bogged down and burnt out for a variety of different reasons. And who knows what we've experienced, all of our experiences being valid. How can that statement really help somebody to kind of navigate that space of unlearning and tapping into who they really are?
Yeah. Well, the first step is to realize that if you ask yourself that question and you don't know how to answer it, that's okay. So if you look at how you grew up, our schooling, communities, very few people would be able to say that they had someone who asked them what they would do. Most of the time, we're being taught what to do. We're being taught how to behave. We're being taught what to learn. We make it external. And society is built that way. Society is built for us to make it external, to learn how we're supposed to be and who we are. So we go out to the market, whether that's your friends at school or to the internet as an entrepreneur, and we try and find the answer. We try and find the person that has the answer for us. And now the tricky bit is that there will be a lot of people who want to tell you that they have the answer for you. So like, just do this. This will make you all the money that you want. Just do this. You'll be the cool kid, right? Like
Be
it
the
doesn't.
cool kid. Oh boy.
Yeah, I was not the cool kid, just to confirm with
I don't think
everyone.
I don't think I ever wanted to
No, it
be
looked
the cool kid.
terrible. Like
It
so
did.
much work, and like they're doing all these things I don't want to do. Right? Like I don't want to get drunk and puke in the field.
Ugh,
Like that just sounds terrible. Why
no,
would I want to do that?
I'm out.
Anyway, the point is that we have this experience that we're supposed to go out and find it
Right.
external to us. But when you flip that around and you ask yourself the question, what would I do? You create the space for you to tap back into what you would do. And most of the time, the beginning part of that answer is one, I don't know, or two, I know what I wouldn't do.
Those are very valid.
Super valid. And the more things you know you wouldn't do, the closer you get to the things you would do. And all of us have been through this journey. None of us like woke up one day and were like, okay, I'm gonna know exactly how I am.
Wouldn't that be nice?
I know, but that's why I call it hard candy coating. It doesn't
Right.
even melt until it's under extreme temperatures, right?
Right.
You have to crack it. You have to like chisel it away. And just like, I don't know how familiar everybody is with Michelangelo, not the Ninja Turtle, the Renaissance artist.
It's funny because I love fine arts, so I love Michelangelo, but also I watched the Ninja Turtles like all the time. Who didn't,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Right.
let's be real, the robe,
Just
red,
to
and
clarify,
right.
I also, when I was in Italy, I did a fun Ninja Turtle search so I could find art by Leonardo
Yes,
and Donatello. And yeah.
right. And so now I actually I think I must have explored creating this
Mhm.
in my subconscious, because I always picture like Michelangelo with a red, like, or with a Michelangelo's the
Orange.
red mask, orange
No, he's
mask.
orange.
Who's red? Raphael.
Raphael.
Right. Sorry. It's been a little while, but right. And I just picture that and I'm like, and it gives me a little chuckle. Sorry, everyone. But
Anyway,
that's welcome to my
Michelangelo,
brain.
the actual human
The,
artist.
the actual human.
So what he used to say was that he could see the beautiful form inside a chunk of marble. So he could just look at the marble and see it. And all he did was chisel away until he revealed the beauty within. And I love this story so much because it is what we have to do every day to live our authentic selves. We have to see the beauty within and allow ourselves the opportunities and space and permission to chisel away at all that external no good that was placed there by other people, and it was not placed there intentionally. And the thing about that now is that we also have a practice of accepting other people's beliefs about what we should do. So it's actually easier to continue to layer on layers of stuff while you were chiseling. So this activity is an ongoing exploration of what would I do? And if you can always go back to that, like, what would I do? Even if this is a thing I love talking to people about in marketing, because it's not even about picking a tactic, right? Let's say you pick podcast, and you pick podcast. There's not one way to do a podcast,
No.
friends. There's many. I don't even know how many millions of podcasts exist in the world. None of them are the same. Everybody's doing it in their own way. What do you want to talk about? What kind of vibe do you want? Would you have guests? What would you do? And like, what makes it fun for you? Like, if you're going to do that, what would make it fun? This is why when I do stuff, I always have a guest. Because I love conversation. Conversation is fun for me. So if we're having conversation, I'll show up all day and be guests on my friend's podcast, right? Sometimes I have to like slow my roll because I sign up for too many, but like, it's fun for me. And you can make it fun for you, but you have to give yourself, no one else. I could sit here all day and be like, permission to make your life fun, permission to make your life fun, permission to make your business feel authentic. And it won't do anything. I wish I was a fairy godmother that I could just do and like give that to people. But you have to give it to yourself. You have to choose it for yourself and be like, that version of me with the duster on the step stool being like, I'm not fine with this anymore. I'm not fine with being my authentic self only 5% of the time.
Right.
I want to go for 10. I want to go for 50. I don't believe in 100, but like, I'm at the point now where I'm pretty close. I feel like 95% authentic, and like, that's good, again, because I don't believe in 100%. It's an ongoing journey, but you have to choose. And it's not, I think this is the thing too, when we get into like the mental health conversation, is it is something that to some degree you have to choose, right? You have to choose to go talk to somebody. You have to choose to go get help. You have to choose to show people what might feel really vulnerable. And until you do that, the space doesn't become available, and spaces can be created by other people as much as they can. And if you don't walk into that space, if you don't listen to podcasts like this, if you don't sit there and ask yourself, well, what would I do? What would I do? Would I go get help? Would I find a trusted friend I can talk to? Would I message Tracy or Shauna and just to have like a removed third party that has absolutely no investment in my life, right? Like, what would you do? And then try it and see if that's what you would do. And if it's not what you would do, if you try it and it feels gross, then try something else. But there's no one right thing. I can't sit here and be like, this is the one way out of feeling this way with your marketing, right? Like, it's not. This is why I coach the way I do, which is like 100% based on who you are and what you're trying to do and who you're trying to talk to and why you want to talk to them and what makes them feel connected to you and all of those things. And then let's do stuff. But we have to figure out, like, who do I want to be? And if you aren't happy with the you were yesterday, that was only 5% authentic, you can be 6% authentic today, but you have to choose.
One step.
Yeah.
1% improvement. That's all. That's it. That's all you need to do. It's all right.
And then
And
you start to build up your habit, right? And you start to be
that's
able
it.
to see, like, oh yeah, I was super authentic in that scenario. And then, like, oh, but I went over there and I was like, not authentic. I put my mask back on. What's up with that? Right? Like,
Mhm.
is it a story I have about that space? Is it that that space just is like not aligned with my personal brand and I should try to remove myself from that space? This is a tricky conversation that a lot of people have when they're becoming entrepreneurs, because a lot of people have that experience with a workplace and they're like, okay, well, I'm going to quit. I'm going to go and do something else. But if we don't have the self-awareness of what was creating that feeling for us, we can subconsciously or unconsciously create it for ourselves in our
Yeah.
businesses as well. And so this is what Shauna was talking about at the beginning about the critical thinking, right? Like when we can stop and just say, whoa, okay, I'm feeling that same way, What's going on with that? What is causing that?
And there are
And
going to be other conversations within this series that address some of those very real lived experiences. So I'm excited to dive into that as well, that whole idea. And in particular, with regards to exploring entrepreneurship after leaving a space, and then like, what does that look like for me? So that's going to be an interesting conversation that might shed some light if that's a specific topic that anyone listening has experienced and or is experiencing and needs to navigate. And asking, and I something that I actually just wanted to bring up was, and I hate to live here, so I don't want to live here long, but what's at stake? Right? What's at stake if we don't explore that? If we don't have, and remember, exploring that, as you said, it's a journey. It's a constant exploration, and it takes courage,
Mhm,
which means that fear exists.
mhm.
So, what's at stake if you stay in that fearful space and you don't actually take the time to tap into what makes your heart really happy?
for for me, the words that come to me are your potential. um, so I believe that every human on the planet and in space, I don't know how many people are in space right now, very small
Fair.
amount.
Depends on if you believe in like the Marvel movies and stuff, but that's okay.
That's true. And I'm talking about humans, so like superheroes and aliens. I don't
Mhm.
know. I don't know their brain processes. Anyway,
We like to
I
have
believe
fun.
if you're in existence,
Mhm.
you're here because you're supposed to be here, which means
Agreed.
you have a unique value that the world needs. Now, I don't necessarily know. There's about 8 billion people on the planet at this point, right? Like, I don't know. I don't have clarity on what everybody's use case is. But I do know that everybody is here because you're supposed to be.
Mhm.
And so when we turn off our authenticity and we try to just like, oh, I'm just gonna go for this job because that's responsible and it pays my bills and all of that. And like, I'm not saying there's one right way to make decisions either. Everybody know, like, you know your own financial situation.
Right.
I like don't you make decisions for you, decisions that
I
work for
think what you're
you.
saying is more along the lines of, if you shut it down,
Completely.
right?
Yeah.
Regardless of the external situation, circumstances that you need to responsibly make choices based on, that's fine. But
Yeah.
if you shut it down,
Mhm. Well, and even in that scenario, right? Like, there's a difference between shutting it down subconsciously and and saying like, okay, I'm going to suck this up. I have a great LinkedIn friend who left a toxic work environment and drove an Uber car for like 8 months. Well, she figured out what she was going to do next. And there were some things that she learned about herself in that process. She was like, oh, I got to like drive around the city with my dog, and that was fun. And I got to meet a whole bunch of new people, which I really enjoyed. And she actually picked up on a lot of things that she liked. Now, that wasn't meeting her personal financial goals. And so she's now doing other things. But you can make that decision. And when you make that decision, knowing that you're like trading, okay, I'm like specifically trading my financial wellness right now for my personal mental wellness, or I'm trading my personal mental wellness for financial wellness. There's a difference between completely shutting it down, which is what Shauna is saying. When we completely shut it down, we lose our opportunity to reach our potential. So you might And this was part of my journey, right? I went to business school. I was taught how it's supposed to look to have a career. And I worked my way up the ladder and I became a senior vice president. And I was like, woo, I did it.
I got my gold star.
Like, now what? It actually, when you say gold star, it makes me think when I was in the second grade, my teacher had these caterpillars for each of us. And every time you read a book, you got a star on the caterpillar. And if you got enough stars in a month, then we had a taco party.
Tacos.
I went to every single taco party because accountability is very good for me. You tell me I need to read that many books, I will kill everybody at how many books I read. I have the same struggle right now with my pillows because I'm not actually as fast or as strong as some of the other people. I cannot beat them. But I don't. What point was I making about this? I got this.
Losing.
Gold star.
Yeah. I was going to say,
like, I achieved
losing your potential. Losing your potential was.
I achieved everything that someone told me I should achieve, which in my brain also said, like, I've reached my potential, right? Like I've reached it, but I didn't feel like I had reached it. I didn't feel like I had done anything. I didn't feel like I had done anything actually. Besides the fact I had my son at this point. But like from a career perspective, I had this professor in university who told me that he would buy stock in my career. And that was like really impactful for me. And when I got to that pinnacle of my career, I asked myself, would I buy stock in this career? And I wouldn't. So that's not saying there aren't other people out there who would have seen my career and been like, yes, look at you. You're top 40 under 40. You're this, you're that. You've got the parking spot. You've got a C-level. Like, I didn't care. I didn't care about any of it. And I wouldn't buy stock in my career. So that was a really big turning point for me career-wise, because I was just like, well, I can't keep following this path because this trajectory is wrong. This trajectory is wrong for me. It's not taking me where I'm supposed to go. It's just filling the gap to have a job, right? And again, I have my son at this point. So then I was like, well, like, what am I trading away to just have a job? I said to my husband at that point, I'd rather go work at Starbucks. Like, honestly, because I get to like make beautiful beverages. I get to meet new people. I get to make people's day. I get to share smiles, right? Like, that sounds way more rewarding to me than sitting here in this office doing what now I'm not saying it wasn't actually doing anything, because I had lots of things and I worked lots of hours, but like, it wasn't doing anything that I was supposed to be doing from my story. This is my story, right? And so I had to, that was the moment I was called, like, I got to go find something else. And I don't know what it is. I don't know what it's going to be, but it's not this. And every day I stay here is a bad decision for my career. And I stayed for 3 more days before I handed in my resignation.
That's massive. And I wanted to say that idea of, would I buy stocks in my career? You could say that about your life. You could say that about your relationship. You can say, it doesn't matter. Insert whatever you're exploring. It kind of loops back to, what would I do? Would I buy stocks in this? Is this something that actually has growth potential, that actually has that opportunity? And if it doesn't, it's time to take a hard look.
And if it doesn't, there's like also small changes you can make, right? Like, we started with the 1%. You don't have to be 100, have to be super drastic like me and be like, I quit.
Yeah, don't turn in your resignation just because of that. Take some time.
And like, there were lots of other underlying factors that like went into my decision to do that. But I happened to have a very supportive husband who would listen to me cry on the phone every day on the way home from work, right? So like, he knows this is not good for my mental health. But there's equal amounts of time in entrepreneurship where we get into these zones, right? And I remember this strategic planning workshop I did the first year I had my business. So I started my business in July. And then, so like, coming into the new year, I did the strategic planning workshop. Seemed very logical at the time. So I went through and did all these things, and I had like 100 things that I was going to have to do to like make stuff happen. And it was totally overwhelming, right? And this is what the workshop was created to do, was to outline like all of these little tiny steps that you have to do to accomplish the thing. But it was totally overwhelming for me. And I was very lucky because at the time, and I know I've recommended this book on Shauna's show before, The One Thing. Someone recommended The One Thing to me. So I read it. And I took that list of.
I think mine's on loan. I was just checking. I think I've loaned mine.
It's around here somewhere. If you haven't read it, read it. There's audiobook. Like, just get it. It changed my life in lots of different ways. But the thing, so I went through at this list of 100, and I was like, what's the one thing I have to do to like get to wherever my next goal was? And I didn't come up with one, but I narrowed it down to 3. I got rid of 97 things.
That's what I was going to say. You had 100. So you know what? We're gonna win.
So this is the thing, right? Like, we go through and our logic brain says, yeah, this makes sense, right? Like, strategically plan the entire year. I'm going to know what I'm going to do in Q1 and Q2 and Q3 and Q4. What I didn't know about myself at that time is that I am like a free flow person. Shauna knows this about me. I have like the minimum viable amount of structure to make stuff happen. Now, on one side, I'm like a huge fan of a system called Asana, which is a project management software. I use it for my life. If something's not in Asana, it's not going to get done. But at the same time, I look at my tasks in Asana every day and I reassess. What if this actually has to, 1, get done, and then 2, get done today? Right? Does this need to get done today? My son was sick last week, so I like didn't do as much work as I thought I was going to because he was at home sick. And I moved stuff. I had a podcast recording I can move, but I had a live show that I kept, and then I took him to my mother-in-law's so that I go to a networking event, and then I canceled another client meeting. I now have a practice of like, what is the most important thing? And the one thing for all of you if you don't feel like reading it, here's the central question. What's the one thing I can do right now so that all other things become easier or unnecessary? And this is the thing we do not do in our lives, right? And like, when we start to feel overwhelmed and we have this like mental load that we're carrying, we are not doing this exercise, folks. We are not looking at what could I not carry today. My grandma called me yesterday. She's like, I have a bath tomorrow and I don't have any shampoo and I need a blah. I was like, okay. Aww. So I, home with a sick kid, do not have time to go pick you up and take you to the store because that's going to take like 3 hours. So what I do have time to do is rummage through my cupboards and see what I have that you can use for tomorrow. And then we can talk about if you need more for next week, then I have time and I can build it into my schedule and I can get it done. So did I have to do something? I mean, I could have straight up said no. I could have said, no, you have to just wash with water for one day.
We don't do that to grandma.
No, grandma has been there for many, many times in my life. And so I would, okay, but what do I need to do? Do I need to do that? Because going to the grocery store is causing me anxiety. So like, what if I didn't have to do that? What if I just looked and said like, do I have shampoo? Do I have toothpaste? Do I have body wash? I have all those things. She might not be like the biggest fan of it, but it's for one bath. What's the worst that can happen? Right. And I went and dropped it off and she was so thankful. She was like, oh, this is so wonderful. It's like, this is great. This is a whole bunch of leftover stuff that I'm not using from my own house. Someone might as well use it. When you're looking for ways to make your life easier, not so that you can just sit around and do nothing, but so that you can do the things that are meaningful to you. And like, I went with my son and my husband sat in the car because my son is sick. So he's not going into the old folks home, but like we did that as a family and it took, I don't know, 20 minutes, right? On a Sunday. It's not that big of a deal. And so the point is that when you're looking for ways to simplify, all of a sudden you get time for the things that are meaningful to you. And whether that's time, I started scheduling 30 minutes in my lunch breaks. So I have like 30 minutes for lunch and then 30 minutes for dance break. Perfect. And so yes. I put music on because I can't do dance break and eat lunch at the same time. It just doesn't work.
Ill advised.
And sometimes I only end up having 5 minutes for dance break, but I always have dance break. And I have a couple of songs. I Believe in a Thing Called Love is like my go-to jam right now
Just
by The
listen to the
Darkness.
rhythm of your heart.
Right? So good.
It's great.
I mean,
It's
like, you
great. That's
can't.
amazing. My husband, I'm going to show him this, and he is going to fall in love with you because it's so rare to find someone who knows The Darkness, first of all. Second of all,
What? Everyone should
second of
know The
all, a
Darkness.
woman.
At least this song.
Usually it's a dude, okay? Because this is
Okay.
like, I don't think many people listening to this understands how
Believe in a
profound
thing
that was.
called love. Just listen to the rhythm of my heart.
I
Nobody
just
can even sing that high. How does that guy sing that high? I don't know.
That's amazing. Oh no, I love that. Sorry, you just
Anyway,
blew my mind
if
that
you
you
have a Spotify account or YouTube or whatever, go look
yes.
up this song, I Believe in a Thing Called Love by The Darkness, and gauge how you feel when you start listening to the song, and then gauge how you feel at the end. And I challenge you to not air guitar because I cannot get
But
through the entire
disclaimer
song.
though, if you want to kind of peruse The Darkness, there are some words and stuff like that. So if you're not a fan of certain words, then okay. But that one, I think that one's safe.
That one's pretty safe. It's been on the radio for years, so
Yeah.
there's at least a clean version if there's not a clean version.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, just putting that.
I played in front of my son, so hopefully
we play the bad stuff in front of our kids. I am under the and this is perfect because this taps into the authenticity bit of it, right? Because it's like, look, it's a part of the song. It's a part of the song. They're not saying a word at you or anybody else.
I'm going to tell you this because you're going to love this. Nicholas's favorite song right now is Ho by Ludacris.
Excellent. I can picture your beautiful little boy.
You're on a Peloton ride. And I was just like, and now he's just like, Mom, do the Ludacris ride.
I can't. I'm gonna hurt myself. We talked about how before we were talking about you're on the Peloton. I've been working with a trainer and my shoulders are hurting from laughing.
Stretch it out.
Right? Oh my gosh, that's too much. Ludicrous. I can't.
Anyway.
I can't.
But this is also a thing. There's a lot of people who will be like, but that music is for like a specific type of person. And like, for me, this is an authenticity bit about Tracy, not a way everyone should be. Like, music is my lifeblood. Like, the reason why I have dance break at lunch is because it brings energy back into my day. And I have a playlist on Spotify called the Feel Good playlist. And it's like all of the songs that just make me feel good. And that doesn't mean that it's the same set of songs, if you like songs, that would make you feel good. But like, when you can find those things and you can put them in your day, even if I challenge you, if you haven't tried this before, I challenge you to pick a day and do it once and just see how that day feels different than other days. Because this is like my experience with the one thing. I did it once and it was so helpful that now I'm like, well, I'm going to keep doing that because it like makes my day feel good. And it allows me, like, from a parenting perspective. So forget the work stuff that might be draining you during the day. From a parenting perspective, I listen to music on the way to drop Nicholas off in the morning and on the way back, and I will sing my guts out if it is a song that I know the words to. I have dance break at lunch. Wait, yes.
Let's be real.
When Celine Dion is on, I am Celine Dion.
Yeah, absolutely.
We listen to music going to pick him up, right? And then you have these like small moments. Even it's a 10-minute drive to pick my son up from school. That's like 10 minutes. You can get at least 2 songs in, usually. At least.
It depends on who the artist is, but
yeah, it depends on if you're doing like an 8-minute Meatloaf song, that might only be 2.
I was leaning towards Rush, but I feel you.
Oh, Rush also, long.
I think it's like 12 minutes, but
Meatloaf is my go-to for long songs.
Yeah,
but like you just get that reset, right? And then it doesn't matter what happened. Some people like to go for a walk and be in nature. Some people like to just like sit and read. But even then, right? Like, I go with my husband. I can't sit and read in the car. It makes me nauseous. But there are people who can sit and read in the car, right? Or when I was in school, my mom would drive and park to pick us up like early. And she'd just bring a book and sit in the car for like half an hour and read. And that was her time in a day to read. And it was like reset time. So let's be honest. Sometimes kids did like, They don't do what we expect them to do.
That's right.
But
That's
then
right.
also when you're in this conversation, you're like, well, I kind of appreciate that you're not just doing what I say, because I don't want you to just like blindly accept instructions from people, even me. Like, ask your questions.
Absolutely.
But like,
So
I
based
guess
on
at the
all of
end of the
that,
day, it's
though,
like, look, if you're looking for it, you can find it.
that's right. That's right. If you're looking, absolutely. It's one of those situations where if when you're skiing, you look for the tree, you're probably going to hit the tree. But if you look for the gaps in the tree, you're going to find your way through. Now, that
Right.
said, I want to invite you to share. I know you've already shared like a million words of wisdom, but any summative thoughts, something that kind of you feel like after all that we've been through in this journey of a conversation, what is that final thing that people need to know, that people need to take away from what we've had to say today?
Okay, so a lot of times people give the advice to be yourself. I'm not going to give that advice because I don't think we know how to be ourselves. So the right words are not coming to me, because I also don't want to say find yourself, because I think it makes it feel like it's out there
It's
somewhere
there.
to be found. But it's like, maybe dig into, yes, dig into yourself. What are those things that you love about yourself? For those of you who are watching the video of this, I have pink headphones. I have pink headphones because they make me feel happy when I see myself wearing them. And there's a lot of people who remember me because there aren't a lot of people who have pink headphones. Although I feel like there's now going to be this trend of people with pink headphones.
Probably.
Just
I
to
mean, you're a
confirm,
trendsetter.
I started it. But like, dig into that. Get interested in the things that bring you joy, in the things that make you feel like an expert. I know we are not talking about specifically imposter syndrome today, but I believe that we experience imposter syndrome when we're trying to be someone else, which means we are an imposter. That's why we experience the syndrome. And so
Right.
if we instead can dig into ourselves and find out what would I do, we don't have to worry about that. This does not mean you're not going to have self-doubt. It's not going to mean that you don't make any wrong decisions along the path. It just means that you start to create a habit around asking yourself what you would do. And if you don't know the answer, then go one level deeper with your curiosity. What might I try?
Stay curious. Stay
Mhm.
curious. I feel like that's a really great thing. Now, thank you so much, Tracy. I hope that everyone makes a point of reaching out. Her house is LinkedIn. That's where you can reach out to her. You can chat. That's like the place to be, to chat with Tracy. And I absolutely encourage you to do that. And thank you for joining us on this conversation. There are going to be many, many more in this series, Marketing Momentum for Mental Health. So don't forget to follow, to subscribe, and to keep your eyes peeled for the next one coming out just very shortly. Chat soon.